Whimsical. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Ollie and this is Simply Stitchy. Now in the last couple of videos we've been working on putting together this table runner, and in the last video we got as far as making the cut sandwich and deciding how we were going to quilt it. And I said in the last video that you could quilt it however you like, which you can. You can do loads of little squirrels, circles, whatever. What I chose to do was I was just going to stitch in the ditch around the 3 different blocks. And as I was stitching in the ditch in the last video, I decided that actually it might look really sweet and cute if I make the applique stand out just a little bit more. And to do that, what you do is you actually stitch around the outline of the applique. By doing that, what it does is it actually makes the outline stand up proud against the rest of the quilt block, and it just gives it that extra pop. So I'll show you how I did that. Bear in mind you will get better results if you actually stitch around your applique before you stitch around the edges of the block. As always, I've done it the other way around. Quilting rules are there to be broken and I break them all the time. It will work this way around, but ideally what you should be doing on any quilt is to make sure you get rid of all the bulk in the blocks, is to start from the middle and work your way out. So for your quilt, especially if it's your first, go around your applique first and then do around the edges of the block. Now what I've got on this one is, because I've got a light coloured block and a dark background, is I've actually got 2 different colours of thread. I've got a white thread on the top to go around the outline, and I've got a dark green one underneath so that you can't see the white stitching on the back of the quilt. Right, it's always best to start in the toppermost corner so that you've got less of the quilt in your way to begin with. I'll show you what to do with the rest of the quilt when it does start getting in your way in a minute. Put your foot down, grab your threads, hold on to them, lower your needle and then start to sew. Now you are going to have to back tack because obviously you don't want the threads coming back out again. And as you're going around the outline and as you're stitching in the ditch, use a straight stitch. When you're stitching around your applique pieces, it's pretty much the same as stitching in the ditch, in that you want to get it as close to the edge of the outline of your applique piece as you possibly can, and then you just sew all the way around. As you go around, you'll find that the biggest part of the quilt is going to get in your way, and to get it out of your way, what you need to do is roll it, and then as you turn lift your foot up first, obviously leave your needle down. As you turn, your folded bit goes under the neck of your sewing machine, and then you just have to keep it out of the way with your hand as you're sewing. And then, oops, lift your foot, leave the needle down and twizzle your work, keeping that folded section out of the way. Remember to put your foot down before you start sewing again. And then you just keep doing that, you keep turning it, keep folding the bit you're not working on out of the way, until you get all the way around your shape. When you're happy that you've quilted it as much as you want to quilt it, you can go ahead and take the safety pins out. The next thing that we're going to need to do is actually bind the quilt, but before we can do that, what we're going to need to do is neaten up the edges and just trim them up a little bit so that they're a bit more level. Now you can do this with a pair of scissors or you can use a rotary cutter, it's completely up to yourself. But before I do any of that, I'm going to get the backing fabric out of the way because I actually want to keep a little bit of the overhang on the backing fabric, and I'll show you why in a little while. So all I'm going to do is chop the wadding, or rather the batting, down to the same size as the quilt top. When you've got the excess wadding out of the way, it'll give you a clearer picture of how much of the extra fabric on the back you need to keep. And basically what we want to do is we want to fold it, push a little bit under so that you've got a nice clean edge, and it forms a binding around the quilt like that. This method is called self-binding a quilt. There is another method of binding a quilt whereby you use separate strips of fabric and you stitch them to the front and the back, whereas with this method all you need to do is stitch it to the front. Now what I'm going to do is I've worked out that for a decent coverage on the binding I need to adjust the extra backing fabric down to about 1.5 inches. Once you've got your backing fabric trimmed down to the 1.5 inches, you might find you have to go a little bit bigger on yours depending on the size of the wadding that you've used. But once you've got it, fold over 1/2 inch like so, and then press it with your iron so that it holds it for you. And then when we've done that, we're just going to fold it over and create the binding. So I'm going to go take it over to the iron and press under that 1/2 inch. Once you've ironed it, you can pop it across the top of your quilt like that. If you find that 1/2 inch doesn't give you enough fabric to get over your wadding, especially if it's a little bit thicker, then reduce this down to 1/4 inch. It doesn't really matter what size you fold under, as long as you've got a neatly folded edge that you can just do that with, it's fine. You don't have to be spot on to that 1/2 inch. Okay, so the next thing to do is grab your clips or your pins, doesn't matter which, and just start clipping it around your quilt like so. Oh, while you're ironing, I forgot to mention, try not to actually touch the wadding with your iron because it's polyester and it will melt. Okay, and you just keep clipping all the way around. When you get to the corners, fold it as you have been doing all the way around the quilt. Bring this side over the top like that, and then what you do is you just fold that square bit underneath until it forms, oops, a diagonal like that, so it gives you a mitred corner. Or you could just leave it as a square, it's personal preference, but if you want a mitred corner, just angle that underneath until you get that nice mitred edge. And then hold it with a couple of clips on both sides. Oops. And Oops, slipped a bit. There you go. One on the actual corner to keep that mitre in place. And now it's just a case of sewing it all together. Now what I've got set up here is I've got the same colour thread on the top and the bobbin, because obviously I'm stitching a dark fabric. Using the white that I used on the blocks would just show up too much. Now when you start to sew, what you need to do is, I'm going to remove that for a moment, start at the very edge of one of your mitered corners so that you can stitch that mitered corner down as well. And what we're going to be doing is sewing right on this very edge of the fold line. Okay, grab your threads, put your needle down, and I'm going to be using a straight stitch for this, and remember to back tack. And if you find it's going off just a little bit, just lift your foot and just flatten that corner back down a little. When you get to the edge of the fold, leave your needle in, put your foot up and just pivot like you would do normally. And then just sew. When you get to the next corner, place your needle on that fold, that diagonal line we made, leave your needle in, lift your foot up, oops, and turn the work. And what we want to do is sew down that diagonal line, and that just sews the mitre in place for you. There we go. And then just reverse back. When you get back down to this side of the mitre, you just carry on sewing across the side. If as you're sewing you find that this bit is bunching up, don't be scared to just lift your foot and just flatten it back out with your finger. And there you have the finished table runner. And oops, here's the back. Hope you liked today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And why not nip across to my channel and check out some of the other content that I've got up for your entertainment. Here's some of the links that are coming up on the screen any minute now. One of those links will be to the other videos in this quilt making series. And why not subscribe and click that little bell so that YouTube can let you know when I upload another video. Whatever video you do go and check out next, I hope to see you back for the next one. In the meantime, whatever you're sewing it with, embrace your creativity and have fun. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.